London, the morning of May 23rd, 1701. A procession is crossing London Bridge, and at the head of it, a man on horseback carries an oar. Not a weapon, not a flag, an oar, cast in silver, held upright like a holy relic. Behind the silver oar rolls an open cart, and in the cart, swaying, gripping the rail, rides a man the whole city has come out to see. He has been given, by old custom, his last drink, and by the look of him, several last drinks. The crowd is enormous. People hang out of windows, boats jam the river just to watch the cart pass. The man's name is William Kidd, Captain Kidd, and the procession is walking him, at the pace of a funeral that hasn't happened yet, 3 miles across London, to a wooden scaffold built in the mud of the River Thames below the high water line. On purpose. That location is the entire point. This is what actually happened when the sea's most wanted men finally ran out of ocean. Not a cinematic last battle, a legal machine. Capture, prison, trial, procession, rope, and then a stage of the show that most people have never heard of, involving tar, iron, and years of standing very, very still. By the end, you'll know why the law insisted on hanging sailors at the one gallows in England, but the tide would cover. Because it's not superstition, it's a message. And the message wasn't for the crowd on the bank. Along the way, a rope that fails at the worst possible moment. 4 words from 2 women that beat the entire court system. And a pirate who inspected his own noose, decided it was substandard, and fixed it. Professional to the last. Start with the machine itself. Crimes on land belong to the ordinary courts, but crime on the high seas, beyond the reach of any county, belong to a special jurisdiction, the Admiralty. The High Court of Admiralty tried pirates, and its symbol of authority was that silver oar you just saw, carried before the condemned the way a mace is carried before a king. When the Admiralty moved, the oar moved first. A ceremonial paddle, escorting men to the mud. The bureaucracy of the age had a genuine gift for theatre. Remember that word, theatre, because this entire episode is about a show, and we're going to work out who the audience was. A captured pirate bound for London landed first in prison, typically the Marshalsea in Southwark, the Admiralty's holding pen, a place where men waited months in irons while the paperwork of their deaths matured. Then came trial. And if you're imagining a long courtroom duel, drop it. A piracy trial of the age was brutally short, often a day or 2 for a whole crew. The accused, by the standard practice of the time, had no defense lawyer for the facts of the case. A man argued for his own neck, usually the first formal argument of his life, against professional prosecutors, in a courtroom whose verdict everyone in the building already assumed. The usual defense, practically the only one that ever worked, was to claim you'd been forced, that the pirates had pressed you out of a captured ship against your will. Musicians tried it, surgeons tried it. Sometimes it was even true, and sometimes the court even believed it. And short didn't mean slow. The machine's tempo, once it had you, was genuinely frightening. In Jamaica, in November 1720, Calico Jack Rackham's crew went from courtroom to gallows inside the same week, condemned one day, several of them hanging within 48 hours. Whole companies were processed in batches. Read the indictment to 30 men at once, hear the forced men pleas, sort the register of who signed the articles, the pirates' own beloved paperwork, remember, now Exhibit A, and schedule the ropes by the tide table. Justice of the age didn't deliberate over pirates. It processed them, the way their victims' cargo got processed, by list, by lot, efficiently. Kidd's own trial, in May 1701, was the celebrity case of the age.
a privateer with a royal commission and aristocratic investors who claimed to the end that the ships he'd taken were legal French prizes and that he had the French passes to prove it. The passes, the two documents at the heart of his defense, could not be found for his trial. He hanged partly on that absence. 2 centuries later, in 1911, a researcher found them, misfiled in a London government archive, where they had been sitting the whole time. Whether they'd have saved him is a debate. The point is sharper than that. The most famous pirate trial in history ran on missing paperwork, and the paperwork existed. At the trial's end, Kidd told the court he was, his phrasing, the innocentest person of them all, condemned by perjured witnesses. The court was unmoved. 2 of the main witnesses against him were former crewmen buying their own necks with testimony, which was standard procedure, and everyone knew it. Let's call that the first dark joke of the day. The machine had more of them in stock.
Now the walk. From the Marshalsea, the procession, silver oar, marshal, chaplain, cart, crossed London Bridge and wound 3 miles through the densest crowds in England, past the Tower, east along the river to Wapping, a sailors' district of stairs, taverns and rope walks. The custom of the route allowed the condemned a final quart of ale at a tavern along the way, the state buying a man his last round before taking everything else. And at the bottom of Wapping's river stairs, in the foreshore mud, stood a small, deliberately shabby wooden gallows. Execution dock. It had been in business for centuries, and it would stay in business until 1830. Location, location, location. The scaffold stood below the low water mark, on the wet strip of ground that the Thames covers and uncovers twice a day. Legally, that strip isn't quite England. Land law ends at the high tide line. Below it begins the sea, the Admiralty's kingdom. The lawyers of the age were making a statement in geography. This man's crime belongs to the water, so his death will happen on the water's territory, on ground the sea itself signs twice a day. A gallows with a legal address in the ocean. Told you the bureaucracy had a gift. The hanging itself was, by design, the crudest part. No engineered drop. That humane arithmetic belongs to a later century. At execution dock, the rope was short. The cart or ladder was pulled away, and the man strangled, slowly, his own weight doing the work over long minutes. Sailors, with the graveyard humor of their trade, had a name for the performance. They called the dying man's convulsions the Marshal's dance, after the Admiralty marshal who ran the show. When Kidd's turn came, the machine added its second dark joke. The rope broke. The half-hanged captain dropped into the Thames mud, alive, in front of thousands. They picked him up, found a new rope, and did it again, this time to completion. The chaplain on duty wrote that Kidd used the intermission poorly, still drunk, still insisting on his innocence. The state, for its part, insisted harder. Then, for most men, came the tide. By Admiralty custom, the body of a hanged pirate stayed chained to the gallows until 3 tides had washed over it. 3 risings of the Thames, 3 official signatures of the sea on the sentence. Onlookers on the banks waited through it. The river did its part on schedule. Only after the 3rd tide was the body released for burial, if anyone wanted it. Kidd's body had a different booking. The Admiralty had a second machine, reserved for its headline cases, and it's the part of this story the movies always skip: the gibbet. And it was a machine, engineered, commissioned, invoiced. A blacksmith measured the body and forged the cage to fit, iron hoops for the ribs and hips, straps down the limbs, a frame for the skull, everything riveted shut, built to hold a man's shape long after the man had stopped insisting on it.
The body was first dipped in tar, a preservative, sailors' own material, the stuff they corked hulls with, which kept the exhibit weatherproof through years of river fog and gull traffic. None of this was cheap. A gibbeting cost the authorities real money in smithwork and labour, and they paid it the way a company pays for signage. Then the whole assembly was hoisted on a tall post at Tilbury Point, far down the Thames, where the river opens toward the sea. Not hidden, the opposite of hidden, placed precisely where every single ship entering or leaving the port of London had to sail past it. And there Captain Kidd stood, tarred and caged, through summers and winters, for years. Some accounts stretch it toward 2 decades, while the busiest shipping lane in the world filed past his feet.
And now you can answer the question from the top of the video. Who was the show for? Not the London crowd. They got their spectacle at Wapping and went home. The gibbet at Tilbury played to a different house. Sailors. Every merchant crew outbound for the Caribbean, every navy squadron, every fishing smack, thousands of working seamen a year, each one a potential recruit for some future pirate captain, passed a tarred colleague at masthead height, positioned like a lighthouse. Because that's what it was. A lighthouse of policy. Rocks over there, this over here. The Admiralty was advertising in the only medium guaranteed to reach its exact target audience, on the one billboard no seaman could avoid reading. The tide-washed gallows told the sea, "Your crimes are ours to punish." The gibbet told the sailors, "And here is the pension plan." The colonies ran the same advertising with field improvisation. November 1718, Ocracoke Inlet on the Carolina coast. Lieutenant Robert Maynard of the Royal Navy finishes the bloodiest boarding action of the era against the most theatrical pirate of them all, Blackbeard, Edward Teach, the man who wove slow-burning fuses into his beard so he'd board through his own smoke like something arriving from below. Teach goes down fighting, by the after-action accounts taking 5 gunshot wounds and 20 sword cuts before he drops. And Maynard, a practical man who understood exactly what trade he was in, takes the head, hangs it from the bowsprit of his sloop, and sails it home down the coast. A mobile gibbet, a billboard with rigging, paraded past every anchorage on the way to the Chesapeake, where it ended displayed on a pole by the waterway. The Thames version stood still and let the ships pass. Maynard did a promotional tour. Did the audience listen? Here's the thing, not always the way the Admiralty hoped. Boston, July 1726. A young pirate named William Fly is brought to the scaffold after a short, vicious career. The great preacher Cotton Mather has spent days trying to wring a public repentance out of him. Dying confessions were the true crime content of the age, printed and sold as pamphlets, and the state very much wanted this one. Fly declines the script. He steps up onto the scaffold, looks at the hangman's work, and, this is recorded by Mather himself, who watched it, criticizes the noose. Tells the hangman he doesn't understand his trade. Then reties the knot himself, properly, sailor fashion, and hands his own execution back to the professionals with the quality controls signed off. No repentance, no tears. By the accounts, he went out steady, telling the crowd in substance that dying was the job's known exit and captain's cruelty was what made pirates. The sermon that day was supposed to be Mather's. It wasn't. And here's why the state wanted that repentance so badly. Executions were a publishing industry, and the dying speech was the product. In London, the chaplain of Newgate Prison, the Ordinary, as the office was titled, held what amounted to a licensed monopoly on condemned men's last words, and he monetized it. After each hanging day came the Ordinary's account, a printed pamphlet of the criminals' lives, crimes, and final confessions, sold on the streets for pennies, in print runs that made it some of the most read true crime of the century.
A cooperative sinner who repented on schedule made good copy and a tidy moral. The office earned real money from the trade. The gallows had a gift shop. So when a William Fly stands on the scaffold and refuses the script, no confession, no tears, a technical note on not quality, he isn't just dying badly by the state standards, he's sabotaging the merchandise. The authorities could take a pirate ship, his freedom, his neck. The final edit of his own story, that a steady man could keep. Some did. It ruined the pamphlet and made the legend, which is, you'll notice, exactly the wrong way round from what the publishers intended.
The Caribbean ran the same machinery with local staging. Charleston, autumn 1718. The gentleman pirate, Stede Bonnet, a retired army major and plantation owner who had bought his way into piracy out of what contemporaries essentially described as boredom and a difficult marriage, wrote desperate, begging letters to the governor, offering anything, pleading his gentility. It bought him a few weeks. 29 of his crew went to the gallows at White Point ahead of him, and in December, Bonnet followed, reportedly barely able to stand. Gentility, it turned out, was not legal tender at the waterline. Port Royal, Jamaica, kept its own franchise busy. Calico Jack Rackham hanged there in November 1720, then tarred and caged on a sandy islet at the harbour mouth that carries the name Rackham's Key to this day. The town literally renamed a piece of geography after its billboard. Charles Vane, the hard case of the Bahamas, followed within months, hanged at a spit called Gallows Point, and gibbeted likewise. The names survive on modern charts. Sail into Port Royal today, and the map still reads like a court record. But the most famous scene in that Port Royal courtroom belongs to two people the gallows never got. November 1720. Rackham's whole crew is condemned, and then two of the pirates stand and speak 4 words that stop the machine cold. We plead our bellies. Anne Bonny and Mary Read, both women, both pregnant. And the law, which had a rope ready for every man in the room, had a hard stop written into it. An unborn child has committed no crime, and English courts do not hang the innocent, even bundled with the guilty. Both sentences were stayed. Mary Read died in the prison at Santiago de la Vega a few months later, in the spring of 1721, of fever, the records suggest, with her execution still formally pending. The machine outweighted her. And Anne Bonny, nothing. No execution recorded, no release recorded, no burial recorded. She walks out of the documents and keeps walking. The most famous woman of the golden age of piracy simply exits history mid-sentence, the one file the tidy Admiralty never closed. 4 words beat the whole system, and the system never even got to write down the ending. One more stage, because the machine had range. Nassau, December 1718. Woodes Rogers, the new royal governor sent to break the pirate republic of the Bahamas, has a problem. His entire capital is populated by ex-pirates who took the king's pardon and are wobbling on it. So he stages the lesson at home. 10 of the backsliders, caught raiding again, are tried in Nassau, and 9 of them hanged on the harbour ramparts, above the beach where, a year earlier, the pirate flag flew over their own republic. The 10th, a young man named George Rounceville, was reprieved, by the account that survives, at the foot of the ladder, rope in view. 9 ropes for the lesson, 1 mercy for the story to travel with. Rogers understood the medium perfectly. An execution is a broadcast, and every broadcast needs 1 survivor to repeat it. Add it all up, and the scale surprises people in both directions. The peak crackdown, roughly 1716 to 1726, hanged, by the best modern counts, somewhere between 400 and 600 pirates across the Atlantic world. Enough that the trade's leadership was being harvested faster than it could train replacements. And yet the bigger killer of piracy wasn't hemp at all. It was ink. The royal pardon of 1717 and 18, amnesty for any pirate who walked in and signed, retired hundreds of men in a single season. Nassau's pirate republic dissolved mostly by signature, not by battle. And the pardon's cleverest trick was what it did with the signers. Benjamin Hornigold, the founding father of the Nassau Republic, the man who had mentored half the famous names including Blackbeard himself, took the king's paper and then took the king's commission and went straight back to sea as a pirate hunter, chasing his own former colleagues and students through the same channels he taught them to hide in. The government didn't just drain the pirate labour pool, it hired from it, poacher to gamekeeper in one signature, local knowledge included. You want to know what actually broke the pirate republic? Not the gallows, the org chart. Half of it changed sides. The economics did the rest. Naval patrols raised the cost, the pardon lowered the exit price, and the labour pool drained. The rope was never really the weapon. The rope was the poster. The pardon was the weapon.
So why hang a sailor where the tide would cover him? Because the Admiralty was signing its name on the sea itself. Land courts marked their power with stone walls and iron doors. The sea can't be walled. So the Seas Court marked its territory the only way possible, by staging its verdicts on ground the ocean itself countersigned, twice a day, on schedule. The three tides over a hanged man weren't ritual decoration. They were a notarization. And the gibbets down the estuary were the copies, distributed to every reader on the water. The men of the Black Flag ran their whole trade on theatre. The skull on the flag was an ad, designed to make prizes surrender without a fight. The state simply proved it could outproduce them. Bigger stage, longer run, better distribution. Two rival theatre companies, and only one of them could afford iron costumes. Execution Dock took its last booking in 1830. Two smugglers turned killers, the final act of a 4-century run. The river still rises and falls over the spot on schedule, twice a day, keeping the old contract. And in Wapping today, by one of the river stairs, a pub sign swings with a name on it that every tourist photographs, and almost none of them can place. The Captain Kidd. The city hanged him, tarred him, caged him at its front door as a warning to all sailors, and 3 centuries later, it's selling beer under his name, 20 minutes walk from the mud that half-hanged him twice. The Admiralty got the verdict. The pirate got the franchise. If this one held you, the next voyage goes somewhere stranger. The monsters that sailors swore they saw and mapmakers swore into print. Sea serpents, krakens, islands that swam away, and the very real animals hiding inside those stories, one of which we didn't manage to photograph alive until 2004. Subscribe so it finds you, and answer me this below. One word: kid, bonnet, or fly. Which exit would you have picked? The drunk denial, the begging letters, or the man who fixed his own noose? Don't rush it. Everyone in that crowd at Wapping thought they knew their answer too.